Hey, just a quick note before we get into the pod. In this episode, I mentioned the Bass Technique Accelerator, and I forget to mention that you can actually go check it out at bulletproofbass.com. So I forgot to mention the URL. I'm a noob when it comes to these solo shows. So if you do want to go check it out, just go to bulletproofbass.com and you'll find it there. Now, with that said, let's get into the main pod. What is up, everybody? Hopefully you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world right now. A little bit of a different episode on the pod today because I'm going solo. Yes, I know that Ian does them solo, but I think that this might be my first time, maybe my second time ever that I've done a solo pod, and it's kind of like, it's an emergency pod. It's an emergency. It's not really an emergency, but there is a reason why I'm doing it, and it is kind of time sensitive. You may have heard that we have a program open for enrollment. It is a program of mine. It's called the Technique Accelerator, and we have found that, and we only open it once a year for enrollment, and for whatever reason, maybe the stars aligned or whatever, we do not know, but for whatever reason, we've had a lot of people this year signing up for it, like a lot, more than usual. And off the back of that, we've had a lot of questions coming in. Now, I will say that we've had a lot of people sign up for this in the past. There are thousands of bass players that have been through the Technique Accelerator, but it just seems like this is the year that everybody wants to up-level their technique, which is a great thing, by the way. I'm really stoked that people want to up-level their technique, but there are a lot of questions coming in. So what we thought would be a cool idea is to put a quick podcast together to tell people more about the program so they're more informed and they can make an informed decision whether the program is going to be right for them. But also, as all of the questions are coming into the SBL help desk, we can also link out people to this podcast that will give them the full rundown of all of the questions. So I've got a bunch of questions that we've been getting already in front of me. So I'm going to go through them today. But also, just if you've never heard of the Technique Accelerator, let me just tell you a little bit about it, because it is an incredible program. Obviously, I am biased, but it had an incredible effect on my own playing, which I'll get into in just a second. But in a nutshell, the headline is, it is a 6-month program where you get to study with me personally, and I take you through the exact curriculum that I created for myself over 20 years ago to level up my own playing. It seems bonkers. I was trying to work out earlier. I was like, when did I create this curriculum? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, whoa, it was over 20 years ago, because I'm 45. I'm 45 this year, actually. Rocking it. Loving 45, actually. I think it's a damn good age. And I think I say that every year, but I think I feel it even more this year. But yeah, so I'm rocking 45 at the minute, and I created this program, this curriculum. I actually didn't create this program, but I created the curriculum for this program that I used for this program when I was in my early 20s, and I'll get into how this developed into the Technique Accelerator in just a moment. But yeah, at the time I was a working professional. I started working as a professional bass player when I was around 18 years old. And it was a really fantastic journey, with definitely some ups and some serious downs as well, because I wasn't ready to be a working professional at that time when I did become a professional bass player. I'm sure that some of you have heard that story before. But I went through, various different gigs and professional environments. I was working in theaters, and then I ended up on cruise ships, which was just an absolutely amazing experience. I definitely recommend, if you've got the chance to go do a cruise ship as a musician, especially if you're in your younger years, it's a great learning zone. It's like going to university, but you get to travel the world and you get paid as well. So it was awesome for me. I absolutely had a blast doing it, and I learned a lot. But anyway, when I got off the cruise ships, I was in my early 20s, and, I was listening to all of the guys that you would expect, the John Patitucci's, the Marcus Miller, the Victor Wooten, the Elaine Caron, the Anthony Jacksons, those guys, the Gary Willis, right? I was listening to the Gary Willis. He actually should be called the Gary Willis, actually, just side note. Anyway, so, I get off the ships and I'm geeking out on all of those legends. And I start playing around Leeds, move to Leeds, and everything's going great. But it became really apparent to me that my playing had hit a serious roadblock. I'd had this kind of, I guess it's sort of like really fast acceleration from ground zero, not being playing, at 18 years old, when I first started playing as a professional musician and bass player. I had this really fast acceleration that lasted from maybe like 18 years old to about 21. So 18, 19, about 3 years, 4 years at a stretch, right? Was really fast acceleration in terms of my skills on the instrument, my understanding of it. But then and it took me a while to realize it, but I just hit this freaking roadblock. And that trajectory that I thought I was on, that sort of like going up, just getting better and better every month. I felt like I was up leveling. Well, I think that I spent maybe 6 months or a year just treading water. And I'm sure so many of you have felt that feeling before of just stagnation in your playing. And you're listening to those players, the legends, and what you're playing, what you sound like, is certainly nothing like what they sound like, right? And I was in that kind of zone for a painful amount of time. And I thought about it a lot. And you might have heard me talk about it on this podcast or in videos before, but I'm a really analytical person. I kind of sort of like get in the weeds with things. I think about why things are happening and what I can do to unstick them. And through that process of the realization of, oh, my playing isn't getting any better, actually. It's just stuck in this same place, and has been for like 6 months or up to a year. And then also the secondary realization that, oh, this has happened to so many other people. So many other people have this same issue. In fact, most people, most bass players and musicians actually go through this same situation. And the reality is that most people stay there. They don't actually unblock themselves. So, and that's actually heartbreaking for me, because the reason that their bass playing just hits that standstill and never moves forward is actually, there are simple fixes to get around it and unblock your playing and really start up leveling from where you are right now to where you actually dream about being. There are really simple things, but they're kind of like hidden in plain sight almost. You need somebody to tell you about it, right? And hopefully this podcast might be an eye-opener for you. And hopefully if you're in that stage where you're blocked and have been blocked for, hey, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. And let's be honest, some of you that are listening to this right now, it might be a decade, it might be 2 decades. Okay, so if that is you, I want you to listen back, think back to this episode if it happens to you in the future, or maybe if it's happening to you right now and your playing has stagnated and been in that same place for way too long, whether it be a year or 10 years or 20 years or whatever. My message to you is you can absolutely unblock your playing and become a much more proficient player. And I know this because I did it myself. I walked that pathway, the pathway that you have been walking down, or possibly the pathway that you actually stopped walking down, and you're sitting on the side, on the sidewalk. You just sit, you're sitting there trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, why did you stop getting better? Well, my message to you is, you can absolutely unblock yourself, and you can get back up, shake yourself off, and start walking down that road to start up leveling your bass playing again. And I know this because I did that I have walked that road, okay? And what I figured out in my early 20s is that it is a technique issue that holds so many players back. A technique issue. I'm going to read something, actually. I wasn't planning on this. Let me pull this up right now. I've got it on my on my desktop here. Shout out to Craig Strain. Craig, if you're listening to this, I know I didn't even mention. I didn't think I was going to actually mention this, but it just popped into my mind that that we were having a text conversation, and this is what Craig says. So Craig, by the way, is a fantastic bass player and a really fantastic educator who is part of the education team here at SBL. He mentors students and does a whole load of other things as well. He's also got a really fantastic YouTube channel that you should check out. Right, Craig Strain Bass. You'll find him on YouTube. Anyway, he messages me, and this is unrelated to, again, I wasn't going to mention it here. He said, hey, I've just uploaded Student Focus episode 206 into the campus within the SBL membership. And then he goes on, he says, I'm sure that you've probably noticed this when you were doing it. And by the way, if you don't know what the Student Focus is, every single month we give people video feedback on their playing within the membership, okay? And Craig does that. So anyway, hey, this is reading Craig's message to me. He said, I've just uploaded Student Focus episode 206 into the membership. I'm sure you probably noticed when you were doing it, but probably 78 to 80% of the issues in people's submissions are to do with their technique. Specifically, left-hand thumb placement on the neck and wrist angle, as well as a bunch of right-hand issues. And obviously he's talking about right-hand players there. So you'd have to adjust that if you're a lefty, right? And then I go on to say, my reply to him is, I was like, yeah, dude, 100% agree. It's actually mind-boggling how many issues stem for so many bass players having, I'm gonna put crap technique. I actually put something beginning with an S, SH technique there. But it's true. There is so many, and this is interesting that Craig then comes back and he's like, yeah. And then he puts, yeah. And the stranger thing is how many of them are oblivious to it. So that's a private conversation between Craig and I. And we're not calling people out and saying, oh, it's so shameful that they're oblivious to it. It's the interesting thing is that it is so easy to be completely unaware of what is roadblocking you. Okay. It's quite strange. And again, I know this because it was me. I'm talking about myself in my early 20s. I was actually oblivious to it as well. So oblivious that my playing sat still for 6 to 12 months. Okay. So if this is you and you're like, oh no, don't feel bad about it. Okay. The reason, or the interesting thing here is it affects so many people and nobody understands why it's happening to them. Again, I think I used this term before, it's hiding in plain sight. Here's the headline, another headline for you. Everything that you do on the bass stems from your technique. Everything. Picking a single note, your tone, how you move around the fingerboard, how you fret a note, your groove, your time, everything is affected by your technique. So if you think that great technique is about playing fast, it is not about playing fast. Great technique facilitates, yes, playing fast, but it also facilitates great groove, great time, great tone, great articulations, great control of dynamics within your grooves and your lines. If you don't have your technique dialed in, none of that is going to be dialed in. Does that make sense? It is the fundamental building blocks. It's the foundations that you build the house on top of. Your technique is that foundational element, okay? So that is why when Craig and I were talking through text with him, we use a text app called Slack. When we were slacking each other back and forward, that was the conversation was, 80% of people have got technique problems and most of them are oblivious to it. that is mind-boggling, right? And again, it was like I was that individual as well. So that's why your technique is so important. And that is why when I, going back to my early 20s, when I felt my playing completely stagnating for 6 to 12 months, when I really dug down into it and thought about it super hard. And I should also give credit to Gary Willis here. He had a huge impact on me. This is before I even knew Gary, before I studied with Gary, but just watching Gary, listening to or reading the books that he'd written, that was huge for me because it became very apparent that he had thought a lot about it himself. He'd done a lot of problem solving on his own technique. And I was like, isn't it interesting that he's gone down this real pathway of, diving deep into his technique and really, doing the work there. And I was like, And then also Elaine Caron. I went to a workshop with Elaine, who's a beautiful French-Canadian bass player, absolute stunning player. And again, he spoke so much about technique and his approach to technique that all of these things started connecting for me. It was like, again, it was all hiding in plain sight, but it took these connections in these, with Gary Willis and Elaine Caron, all of these different things. I needed to put the jigsaw puzzle together. And when I put that jigsaw puzzle together and looked at the picture, I understood that, it was my technique that was holding me back. It was my technique that was blocking me. Okay. And if you have been, stuck for a year or 10 years or 20 years or more, and your playing has not got any better, if it's just stagnated for that time, it's your technique that is holding you back. Okay. And it is absolutely, being able, you can absolutely unblock it. Okay. So, and if I hadn't figured this out, if I hadn't figured out what the problem was and then created a curriculum myself to unblock myself, I would have been one of those players that my playing would have stagnated and it just wouldn't have got any better. I know many of those players. There are professional players. You probably are listening to this right now. Okay. You're a professional player. If you're not a professional player and you're like a hobbyist or you're a semi-pro, do not kid yourself that professional players don't have these problems as well. They absolutely do. Some of my friends, a lot of my friends have suffered with this exact thing. A lot of my friends have been through the Technique Accelerator to unblock themselves. Okay, so there's no shame here, okay? And so just to bring it back to that curriculum, what happened with myself is I went in this period, once I'd discovered, or I thought I'd discovered what it was. Now, obviously, I had discovered it, but I didn't know that for sure. There had to be a leap of faith, right? And I do think that sometimes you've just got to take the leap of faith. Stop freaking procrastinating and standing on the sidelines with your hands in your pockets, looking at the grass, right? Sometimes you've got to get onto the pitch. You've got to take a leap of faith. So I took a leap of faith that my intuition, my gut was telling me, hey, this is actually it's a technique issue. So I went full nerd and I decided that I was going to create a custom curriculum for myself. And the big idea here, okay, the big change for me that I decided that the curriculum that I decided to create for myself was that I was going to start working on my technique and start compartmentalizing all of the different elements of my technique. Because everywhere that I looked, I was seeing people talking about bass technique as one thing. Hey, let's work on your bass technique, right? And I'd gone to, tutors before and hey, let's work on your bass technique. I bought books, that help you with your bass technique. And my big idea, my unconventional idea or my unconventional feeling about this is that technique wasn't one thing. and is that it's a collection of things. And that my concept was that I am not going to work on my bass technique, actually. I'm going to subdivide these out, compartmentalize all of these different elements, and I'm going to work on them individually as individual techniques. And then I'm going to bring them together, and they will then construct my overall bass technique, almost like an umbrella, right? You've got all of these things that sit within the umbrella of bass technique, and all of those individual elements, I was going to break them out into their single parts. And then once I identified what the parts were, I was then going to create custom exercises for each individual part. Okay, so you've got your bass technique. That's the umbrella. Underneath that, we have lots of different elements. Okay, lots of different elements. We've got right hand dynamic. Or no, I shouldn't say right hand because I'm leaving out all you lefties. We've got plucking hand dynamics. We've got plucking hand ascending exercises, plucking hand descending exercises. We've got muting techniques. We've got right hand muting techniques, left hand muting techniques. We've got fingering systems. We've got shifting systems. We've got, what's it called? I forgot what the word is. Posture exercises. We've got all of these and more. So there's a bunch of different elements, okay, that I broke these parts into. And then for each of the different elements, I created a set of exercises that I would use to work on that particular area. And then once it was ready, I would then fold that into my, regular technique, okay? So the big idea, not controversial, but I guess sort of like the left of usual thinking was that technique isn't one thing. It's multiple things. And I was going to create a collection of exercises for each individual part, then bring it under the technique umbrella. And it took me around 6 to 8 months to firstly come up with the curriculum and then execute those exercises, execute the curriculum. And it took me about 6 to 8 months to completely unblock myself, and not only unblock myself, but take my play into a place where I was actually really proud of it. I was like, holy shit, I actually did it. Not only was my gut feeling right, but this curriculum that I created did what I wanted it to do. It took me from a messy, uncontrolled player who couldn't play those lines, like the people that I was listening to, the bass player I was dreaming of being, right? I couldn't do that. I couldn't play those lines like Anthony Jackson and Marcus Miller and Alain Caron and Gary Willis and Jacko. I just couldn't do it. Okay. And then finally going through this process, creating that custom curriculum for myself around the concept of breaking all my technique into individual parts. Okay. It worked. It worked for me. And it took me about 6 to 8 months to create the curriculum and then execute it and completely change my playing around. Okay. So that was the experience for me. And then years later, I think that I launched the Technique Accelerator maybe 4 years ago. So maybe like 18 years later, I was having a conversation with somebody on the team about this exact thing, okay? My experience with my technique. What really turned me into the bass player that you hear now when you watch me perform or do a YouTube lesson or whatever it is, right? When you hear me play, that is not the player that I was in my early 20s. It was the player I became after this process. And here's the outlandish thing, okay, to say. I'm just going to say it out loud. My playing from a technique standpoint after that 6 to 8 month period pretty much didn't get any better. It really became and it's not something, because it didn't need to. It got to the point I took myself through that curriculum and I was like, oh, I can now play the lines that I wanted to play. And it was like I'd got to and I don't mean this in a sort of like an egotistical way, but I felt like my technique was unblocked to a point where I could play everything I wanted to play. And if I did ever find things that were challenging from a technique standpoint, I knew the exact system that I could use to unblock myself again. So it was like I reached this sort of like weird. So my point here is that how you hear me play today is the player that I became after that 6 to 8 month period. And then I also had that collection, that curriculum. I had that in my back pocket. So if I ever wanted to work on something else, in fact, let's call it out, slap bass. Okay. Slap bass was something that if you've been following me for a long time, you'll have heard me become a lot better at slap bass over the last 18 months, 2 years, right? And it was this exact concept I used. I was like, slap bass isn't one thing. I need to really break slap bass into individual movements and techniques, individual, compartmentalize them all out, and then work on them individually, and then bring them back together. And I did that with slap bass. So that's why you've heard a big leap in my slap playing from 2 years ago to how I play right now. It's the same concept. Okay, it's breaking your technique into these individual elements and then creating custom curriculums around each individual element. Okay, so all that to say, I was having a conversation with somebody on the team. We were talking about this exact thing, and they were like, "Hey, you should create a program for it." I was like, maybe I should create a program for it. And they were absolutely right. Of course, it would have been kind of criminal not to share this approach and this specific curriculum with the bass world. It really would have been like a real crime against bass players to not make this publicly accessible, because it had such a huge impact on my bass playing. So that is when the Technique Accelerator was born. And then I took the original curriculum that I created for myself and expanded on it, because what I wanted to do is make it accessible to people that were at different levels, because I made that custom curriculum for myself, okay? And I was I would say lower advanced player. So somewhere in between intermediate to advanced player at that time in my early 20s. And so it was based on in between intermediate to advanced, right? But I wanted to make it much more broad and open, but I didn't want to water it down. So what I did is I took all of the different exercises within the curriculum of the Technique Accelerator, and with the Technique Accelerator, when you're going through each of the exercises, you get given 3 different versions. You get given a version if you're just starting out in that beginner area, not a complete beginner. This program is not for complete beginners, okay? But for you're up and running, but you're still classing yourself as a beginner. Maybe you've been playing for like 4 to 6 months, maybe, right? You're a beginner. So there's exercises for you guys. There's also exercises for intermediates, and there's exercises for advanced players as well. So this program is completely customizable depending on your skill level. And that's what I really wanted to do. So I took that custom curriculum that I made for myself and then added to it by creating other exercises or other pathways. I shouldn't say other exercises, because they're actually the same set of exercises, but they're just presented in a slightly different way, okay? Different pathways for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. So the program itself, as I've said, it's 6 months long, right? The reason it's 6 months long is it took me 6 months to do this. I said 6 to 8 months earlier, right? Kind of took me about 2 months to come up with the curriculum, and then 6 months to execute on it, okay? So it took me 6 months long to really change who I was as a bass player. So that's when I created the Technique Accelerator. I wanted to, it was a hat tip to that. I was like, okay, I'm going to deliver these lessons over 6 months, okay? And the program itself, as you might have guessed, is completely step by step. There is no guesswork. Every single lesson gives you not only the exact exercises that I want you to use, the exact curriculum that I used, but I also tell you exactly how long to practice each exercise for. Like exactly how long to practice. So not only do I tell you the exercise, I also tell you how long to practice each exercise for as well. So in terms of step by step, this is as step by step as it becomes. And throughout the 6 months, there is one lesson every single week with myself. So if you think that you can put up with me for 6 months every single week, then this might be the program for you. If not, then it might not be the program for you. You know, maybe I'll annoy you after 6 months. I should also say that you can also self-pace yourself if you want to. So if you want to, for whatever reason, go faster through it, I'd be careful doing that. But if you do want to go faster, you can do. But certainly, if you want to go a little slower through it, you can do that. So if anything, I'd say, hey, maybe just take your time going through this. Maybe it's not a 6-month program for you. Maybe it's an 8-month program for you. Maybe it's a year-long program for you. You can go through it at your own pace, okay? And just to tell you up front as well, this program is based on 20 minutes of practice per day, around 4 to 5 days a week, okay? So if you have 4 to 5 days a week you can practice, and you can dedicate 20 minutes of practice per day, you can turn yourself into a different bass player in this period of time. Okay? I promise you that. Like really, you can completely change who you are as a bass player, which is freaking exciting to me, right? It's so exciting. Also, it's all video. By the way, if you're just thinking, Scott, just tell me where to go. Tell me where to go. Sign me up, okay? You can go to bulletproofbass.com. Just bulletproofbass.com and you'll find it there, okay? Okay, so that's just to give you a heads up if that's where to go if you want to go get it now, okay? I also should say it's 20 hours of content or over 20 hours of content. Included. So it's all video content of myself, 20 hours of content. You get lifetime access to the program. And so literally lifetime access. So you could, if you wanted to, take years to go through this program or keep going back to it, which is what I do, just put it out there. I use these exercises every single week. Every single time I pick up the bass, I use the exercises in this curriculum. Really. So you get lifetime access to it, and there's also a money-back guarantee as well. So you can try out the entire program for a full month, full 30 days. And if for any reason it doesn't completely rock your world, okay? If you don't feel like we're blowing your mind with the technique exercises that are in this program, just ask for your money back. No harm, no foul. We're not going to come up with any sort of like weird questions or anything like that. It is a no questions asked money back guarantee. So you can try it for a full month. So you have zero risk. Okay. The risk is all on me. Okay. It's all on me because you could log in, you could download all of the materials, you could watch all of the lessons, right? And then you could just get your money back. So all of the risk is on me. And that is why we created that 30-day money-back guarantee, because I want to put skin in the game. I want to be like, look, all the risk is on me. All of the risk. There is zero risk for you. So if you actually care about your bass playing, if you really care about it, you will go check this out, okay? Because there's zero risk for you, okay? So again, it's bulletproofbass.com. Now, it would be outlandish of me to miss out this next thing as well, because we know how much of an impact this can have on people's bass playing. We wanted to make it a complete no-brainer. So yeah, it might be a no-brainer now, because obviously I've said that, look, there's no risk on you, it's all on me. But just to go the extra mile, we created an amazing bonus stack for this as well, to make this a complete no-brainer. Now, the bonus stack, let me pull this up here. I've got it right here. He says, not having it right here. The bonus stack there's two things in the bonus stack. Let me pull them up right here. I'm going to read one of them because one of them is, well, both of them are awesome, but one of them is just outlandish. Outlandish, okay? So, and what is a bonus stack? Again, it's to make this a no-brainer offer. So you're just sort of like, oh, just sign me up, okay? And I'll say it right now, the bonuses that I'm about to tell you are worth the price for the actual Technique Accelerator. So if you and the base Technique Accelerator is just under $200. I think it's like $197. Okay, the bonuses are worth this. Never mind the actual program itself. Okay, and that was the concept when we set out to create this bonus stack. My mandate to the team was, let's create bonuses that are worth more than the actual course itself. So it's just this sort of like landslide of value for people that sign up for this. So bonus number 1 is called the Bass Technique Etude Collection. Okay, I'm just going to read this directly from the page. You'll see, if you go to bulletproofbass.com, you'll find it there. It says on the page that nothing pushes you to develop unstoppable. I can't read. Nothing pushes you to develop unstoppable bass technique more than learning melodic bass etudes. And there's nothing more fun either. That is why we created this pack, and these are 27 custom created melodic bass etudes for you. They will push you to dial in your bass technique, and they are going to be a blast for you to play as well. We have etudes for all skill levels as well, from beginner to seasoned pro, and they cover also almost every genre as well, from folk to classical to funk to jazz. And they will show you how to create more melodic nuance in your playing as well, by adding in articulations that make your bass lines pop, and of course, dialing the fundamentals of your bass technique as well. So no matter where you are in your bass journey or what style of music you play, these etudes will give you the confidence and the skills that you need to nail even the most challenging tunes and lines with ease. And best of all, each of these 27 etudes has a matching video tutorial. Check this out, okay? Just check this out. Each of the 27 etudes has a matching video tutorial that breaks down each piece in detail. So it's like having your very own teacher taking you by the hand, not only demonstrating the etudes for you, but also showing you exactly how to play them. And check this out. The bass technique etude collection comes with over 7 hours of video tutorials teaching you how to play this stuff. If that isn't outlandish, I don't know what is, okay? So not only do you get the 27 etudes, okay, which have been custom created as a bonus for this program, okay, you also get 7 hours of additional step-by-step lessons that come along with this. Bonkers. And you've heard me talking about Simon King before, right? The person that did the album with me, right? Simon King, the Divine King Project, right? Simon King is the teacher for this. He is outlandish. You've heard me talking about this before. Simon is an outlandish musician. He's an outlandish guitar player. He's an outlandish drummer. And my God, he is an outlandish bass player as well. So this is a real treat. And I will say, unknowing to most, I've actually been using these bass etudes myself. Shh. And I haven't even told Simon, and I've been loving them. They're amazing. He is amazing. Simon, if you ever listen to this podcast, I love you. And also slightly hate you as well, because you're too freaking talented. Anyway, so that is the first bonus. And again, it's called the Bass Technique Etude Collection. 27 custom created etudes for bass, with over 7 hours of tutorials that go with them as well. So it's like having it's like Simon being at your side as you go through them etudes. And then the second bonus, and the value on that, by the way, is $127. If we weren't going to sell that as an individual course, it would be at least $127. And then we've got the Ultimate Practice course as well. And this is a 6-lesson mini workshop with myself, where I take you through my exact practice approach that I use with myself in terms of how to structure my practice time. Again, it's called the Ultimate Practice Course. It's a 6-lesson workshop. I'm teaching all of that, and it is my exact approach that I use for myself to really use the 80-20 rule, okay? Getting 10 times the results out of a fraction of the time. It's something that I'm addicted to, really focusing on, okay, I've got like a 30-minute slot here, or I've got an hour slot. Well, time, how can I say this? Okay, how you structure your practice time is going to be detrimental to the results that you get. It's going to be crucial. And in that course, I show you the exact framework that I use and really recommend to use, okay, to get the maximum results you can, okay? So if you're going into the practice shed, right, you're in the shed, you're going to get 10 times the results that you would usually get by using these frameworks, okay? By really focusing on the details that really matter, okay? And again, that if we were going to sell that as a separate thing, we'd price that at $97, but we're throwing it in free in this as a bonus with the Technique Accelerator, okay? So when you do sign up for the Technique Accelerator, or if you sign up for the Technique Accelerator today, by the way, you can go to bulletproofbass.com, you can find it there. If you sign up today, you can get it, all of the bonuses, the Etude Pack with Simon King, with 7 hours of additional content, and the Ultimate Practice Course from myself. Those two, which I think collectively, that's over like $200 worth of bonuses there. You can get them for free just when you sign up for the Bass Technique Accelerator, okay? And if you're thinking this sounds absolutely ludicrous, Scott, you're a madman, that's what I was going for here. That's, if it sounds like that, my job here is done, because again, I wanted to make it a complete no-brainer. So like, duh, you didn't sign up? You're crazy, okay? That was the aim here. Also, a few quick questions before we wrap today, okay? And I think that I've just written down because these questions were coming in, so I wrote them down. Shout out to anybody that messaged into the help desk. We love hearing from you guys. So again, we just created this podcast to give people context of what it was, what this program's all about, and so you can make an informed decision of whether it might be right for you or not, right? So here's some more questions that people have been asking. How long do I have access to the course for? I've mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. You've got lifetime access to the course, okay? Are the lessons live? No, the lessons aren't live. These are on demand, okay? On demand at your own pace. But I would recommend going through it and taking 6 months to go through this, okay? Yes, you could go faster if you want, but I would say, hey, take your time. How long is each lesson? So every single week, if you choose to take the 6 months to go through it, every single week, each lesson is around 25 to 30 minutes of content, okay? And this isn't like our YouTube content. This is very focused, hardcore, educational content, okay? Super step by step. I tell you exactly the exercises I want you to do, and I tell you exactly the time to practice them for, okay? Super step by step. And again, each lesson, each week, you're going to get 25 to 30 minutes of video content. How long do you have to enroll? Well, it depends when we're closing enrollment or when this goes out, okay? I'm looking here. There's a few days left. There will be a timer on the page when you go to bulletproofbass.com. There will be a timer on the page that tells you how long left you have to enroll, okay? If you are listening to this right now, this might go out on the closing day, okay? We haven't figured out when we're going to publish this episode yet. So it might be going out on the closing day. If it goes out on the closing day, you've got less than 24 hours. So it depends when you pick up this episode, right? So please, if this sounds like it could be for you, go there now, check it out, bulletproofbass.com. I do not want you to miss this, okay? Because, and I'm going to jump forward in my questions here, somebody's asked, if I miss enrollment, when does it reopen again? Late 2024, if we open it again. With the Jazz Accelerator, we decided not to open it again. We're folding it into a much higher price program. There is the chance that we might do this with the Technique Accelerator again. So if we do reopen it, it will be in late 2024. If we do reopen it, okay, but I'm just putting it out there. There is a chance that we might not reopen it, okay, because it might get folded in to a much higher price program that we're looking at launching in 2024. So again, if we do reopen it, it's going to be late 2024, okay? Okay, a few more questions here. Is it for total beginners? It's absolutely not for total beginners, okay? You should be up and running okay already. If you've got, if you've been playing for anywhere like from 4 to 6 months, okay, perfect. You're great for it. Now, just to say what I said earlier, there are different pathways through this. There are different tracks. And in the video lessons, I talk about this. I give you different approaches to the different techniques within the curriculum based on your specific level. So if you are not a total beginner, but if you've been playing for like 4 to 6 months, great, there's a pathway for you. And likewise, if you're an intermediate player, yes, there's a pathway for you. And if you're an advanced player, yes, there is an advanced player for you. So if you're just starting out and you've just you're just a total beginner, no. But if you're like a up and running already beginner, yep, you're great. Intermediate or really advanced, great as well. There are pathways for you. There have been some incredibly advanced bass players signed up for the Technique Accelerator. Some incredibly advanced players. There is one player, I'm not going to tell you who he is because I don't want to, because it wouldn't be fair of me to share it. But there is one player that signed up for the Technique Accelerator that if I'd had any hair, it would have blown off when I saw that he'd signed up for this Technique Accelerator. All of you listening to this podcast right now have heard the tunes that this guy's played on. He's been an incredible influence to me and Ian. Just, I wish I could say it, but I'm not going to say his name, but it's incredible. He went through the Technique Accelerator as well, which is just mind-blowing and just makes me so proud of the program. Okay, who's this not for? The program is not for anybody who's not willing to put in the work, obviously. And if you haven't got 15 to 20 minutes a day, if you haven't got 15 to 20 minutes a day for around 4 to 5 days a week, this ain't for you. This isn't for you. With a caveat of, look, I've just said that we might not be opening it for enrollment again. And if we do, it's going to be late 2024. Hey, if you got like a crazy busy, because I'm saying this because I've got kids, right? So sometimes my life's crazy. Maybe you're in the position right now where you're like, oh, over the next 8 weeks or the next 16 weeks, I've got a crazy busy life going on, but then I've got the time to spend on this, then I would consider enrolling. Because then you could just push it out. Hey, I'm going to look at this, let me like 2-3 months down the line, then I'm going to jump into the curriculum. If that's the case, great. I would consider signing up for this, obviously. But if you're just sort of like, no, I haven't got 4 to 5 days a week, I cannot do 15 to 20 minutes a day, then it's not for you, okay? No harm, no foul, okay? Does it work for all styles of music? Absolutely. Again, your technique is the fundamental building blocks for everything that you play on the bass, okay? Yes, it works for all styles of music. And that's all the questions that have been coming in. So again, hopefully this podcast episode really helped inform you to whether this could be a good experience fit, a good program fit for you. I absolutely love this program. I have been through it myself. It is the curriculum that I created. It's the curriculum that created the bass player you hear today, that you hear when you watch my YouTube lessons, when you hear me play in bands, when you watch those live performances. That curriculum created that bass player. And what I would love to do is open it to create the bass player you've dreamed of being. Okay, so if you've got a sound that you want to, the person, the bass player that you want to become in your mind, I would love for this curriculum to be the gateway, the pathway that takes you there, because I have been in your shoes before, and maybe, hey, maybe some people, maybe you're listening to this and this isn't you, but trust me, there will be a lot of people. Maybe you're listening right now and it is you that are roadblocked and your bass playing isn't moving forward. and you feel like you're just treading water. You're not moving anywhere, and you're super frustrated about it. And it could have been going on for less than 6 months, more than 6 months. It could be going on a year. It could have been going on a decade. It could have been going on 2 decades or more. It's okay. Okay, there's no shame in it, but it is fixable. You can unblock yourself. And if you are like me, the secret lies in working on your technique in a very specific way and working in your technique in a way that compartmentalizes everything out, separates everything out, and using custom created curriculum for all of the individual elements and then bringing them together. So again, if this sounds like this program is something that could be a great fit for you, I'd invite you to go check it out at bulletproofbass.com. Again, I'm not sure when this podcast episode is going to be going out. It could be going out on the day of closing, where we're going to close enrollment. If it does close, then if it does go out on the closing day, it means that you've got less than 24 hours to check it out. So please just go check it out, bulletproofbass.com. And hey, I might see you. I hope I see you on the inside. And hey, for all of you that's listened to this and have already enrolled, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for you to go through this experience with me, and for me to be, popping into your inbox every single week with a brand new lesson for over half a year. It's going to be a wild, wild ride, and I'm super excited about the experience that you're going to go through, but also the bass player that you're going to become as well, because you can become that bass player. And I think that is such a freaking awesome adventure to go on. And hopefully I'll be coming along that adventure with you. With that said, as always, thanks so much for listening to the pod. We really look forward to all of the episodes that we record for you guys. We really look forward to, we really just love the community that's been created around this podcast. It's one of my favorite things that I do for SBL, and we don't take it for granted ever. We never take it for granted. Every time I hook up with Ian, I'm always super excited about what we're going to talk about. And yeah, just looking forward to, spending more time with you guys on the podcast. And hey, maybe 2024 or bring some live events or something like that, and we'll get to hang out in person. I think that would be an incredible experience. With that said, I'm going to call it. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the shed. Take it easy. Bye.